The house looked wrong the very first time I saw it. The front windows were scratched, as if someone had dragged their nails across the glass from the inside. No one was supposed to live there. Yet, standing at the broken gate, I could swear I heard someone breathing, very slowly, somewhere deep in that darkness. Before I go on, let me say this one thing. Before you listen to the story, do not forget to subscribe to our channel, because there are many more terrifying stories coming. All right, now listen. My name is Ryan. I live in New Jersey now, and the video you clicked on, the one titled True Haunted House Footage Caught on Camera, Real Ghost Sightings, that title is not a joke. This is a real story, and some of the footage from that night is still sitting on my external hard drive, though half of it I will never upload anywhere. It was the week before Halloween. My friends David and Chris both run a small vlog channel. They're obsessed with horror content, and that day David had this brilliant idea. He spun his laptop toward me and said, "Dude, look what I found!" It was an old news article from a small town in New Jersey called Maple about a house that had been abandoned for years. In the 90s, a family lived there, the Henderson family. Mom, dad, 2 kids. One night, all of them died in a so-called accident. The official report said gas leak and explosion, but the neighbors said something very different. They said the night before the explosion, they heard screams, heavy banging, someone running, and the sound of kids crying. After that, the house was never rented again. No relatives claimed it. The property went under the city council. No one maintained it, no one wanted it. Yet people who drove past at night claimed they saw someone standing in the window just for a second, watching. We sat there, staring at the article, then at each other. Slowly, the same idea came into all of our heads. What if we used this house for a found footage video? We would spend one night inside, set up 4 cameras, 2 hidden cameras, 2 handheld, 1 audio recorder, maybe a cheap Spirit Box app, and then we would cut it all into a nice, creepy, fake haunted house episode. You get the idea. We were planning to fake it. We were not expecting the house to cooperate on its own. But it did, just not in the way we hoped. That evening, we drove out from town. Chris was driving. David had the main camera rolling from the passenger seat. I was in the back with the gear. As we left the highway and entered the smaller roads toward Maple, I got this weird feeling in my chest, like when a plane drops suddenly in turbulence, except there was no reason. Everything outside looked normal. We rolled into Maple just as the sun was going down. It looked like one of those calm American suburban postcards, small wooden houses with porches, pumpkins on the steps, Halloween decorations everywhere, orange string lights hanging across railings. But as we drove deeper into the neighborhood, I noticed something strange. People were looking at our car, not curious, not annoyed, just quietly watching. A little girl on a bike had stopped at a corner. She kept staring at us without waving, without smiling, just watching until we turned and she disappeared from sight. David laughed and said, "Look at them. They know we're the idiots who came ghost hunting." I tried to laugh with him, but the air felt heavier the closer we got. Finally, we turned onto a narrower street and saw the Henderson house. The whole place looked washed out, like the color had been drained from it. The porch was leaning to one side, wood rotting. Grass in the yard was long and wild. The mailbox was almost on the ground. You could barely read the faded letters on the side. Henderson. Chris parked in the old driveway. He killed the engine, and the second the car turned off, the world around us went quiet. No passing cars, no birds, not even the faraway hum of the town. It felt like the whole neighborhood took a step back and held its breath. David checked his camera and said, "We are rolling from now till we leave." I turned on my small chest camera and clipped it inside my shirt. I wanted separate footage for my own channel later. We stepped out of the car and walked to the porch. Every step on that old wood sounded too loud. The front door was half open, swollen from years of rain and cold. A dusty smell was leaking from inside. Rotten wood, mold, old carpet. David gave his usual YouTube intro to the camera. "Hey guys, tonight we're at the Henderson House in Maple, New Jersey. People say this is one of the most haunted houses in the state." Chris leaned into the shot and said jokingly, "And if we do not make it out, please like, share, and subscribe." I was behind them, not really in frame. I'm usually the guy who holds the light and the extra gear. But tonight I had to be in front too, because I was going to tell the story later in Bangla for my own audience. Back then I was excited. I was thinking about views, comments, the thrill. I wasn't thinking about curses. David pushed the door with his shoulder and stepped inside. The hinges complained with a long, dry creak. Our flashlights cut into the darkness, and for a second, the dust in the air looked like snow falling in slow motion. At first, the inside just looked old. A living room with a ripped couch, a broken coffee table, pieces of a smashed lamp on the floor. The walls were stained and cracked. There were picture frames on the wall. The glass was burned or cracked. The photos inside blackened from smoke. We started exploring. David and Chris talking to the camera in English for their viewers, me occasionally whispering comments in Bangla for mine. Back then I was excited. I was thinking about views, comments, the thrill. I was not thinking about curses. David pushed the door from the inside and stepped out. Our flashlights cut into the darkness.
It was there, then gone. Right after that, the screen on my camera flickered, lost focus, turned black for maybe half a second, then came back. I lowered the camera, blinking. David asked, "What happened? Battery dying?" I said, "Yeah, maybe. Loose battery or something?" I did not tell him about the white sock, because I was not sure I had actually seen it. Maybe it was dust. Maybe it was my brain. We checked the kitchen next. The fridge was an old metal monster with rust everywhere. The door did not even close all the way. On the dining table there were plates that looked like they had been there for decades, covered in dust and spiderwebs. We opened drawers and cabinets. Every metal hinge screamed. The sound echoed strangely around the house. David said, "We should place one camera in the basement, one in the living room, one in the upstairs hallway, then use the handhelds as we moved around." I agreed. Modern ghost hunter logic. Chris and I took one of the small cameras and headed for the basement door. The moment we opened it, a gust of cold air spilled out. The upstairs had been warm and stale, but the basement felt like a refrigerator. I held the railing and went down first. Every step groaned under our weight. I felt like if I stopped walking, someone behind me would keep going and crash into me. The basement was a mess of boxes, old tools, a broken workbench, and in one corner, a ruined piano with missing keys. Somewhere in the darkness, there was the steady drip of water and a faint humming sound you could not quite place. We set the camera on the workbench, angle wide enough to see most of the basement. I was checking the frame when Chris whispered, "Dude, you feel that?" I said, "What?" He said, "Like someone standing right behind us, right over our shoulders." I laughed, tried to look cool for the camera. That's your mind, bro. You have listened to too many horror podcasts. But I did hear something then. From above us, from the stairs we had just walked down. Soft steps. One. Then another. Then another. It sounded like bare feet on old wood. Careful, slow. Chris got silent. We both tilted our heads, listening. The steps stopped just above us, at the exact spot where the basement staircase met the ground floor. We shone a lights up. The staircase was empty. Dust hanging in the beam of the flashlights. No feet. No legs. No one. We convinced ourselves that it was the house settling. Old wood, echoes. Later, when I listened to the audio from that basement camera on good headphones, I heard it clearly. Not just the single person, but two sets of tiny footsteps, like two kids coming down the stairs together. When we came back up, David was coming down from the upper floor with his camera. He looked a little off, not his usual confident self. I asked, "What happened?" He said quietly, "I was in one of the bedrooms, and I heard a voice right in my ear." I frowned. "What voice?" He swallowed. "Like a whisper. Right here." He tapped his right ear. It said, "Go back." I smiled in that fake way you do when you're trying not to show you're scared. "It's in your head. Too much caffeine." But David did not laugh. He said, "No, man. It was not inside my head. It was like someone was standing behind me, close enough for me to feel their breath." I did not reply, because I knew exactly what he meant. We decided that at exactly midnight, we would kill all lights, leave only candles and the glow of our cameras, and walk through the house in darkness. Before that, we went outside to the car for a short break, to grab some food. The second we stepped off the porch, the world felt normal again. You could hear distant traffic, a dog barking somewhere, nature. We leaned against the car and unwrapped our sandwiches. David lit a cigarette. Then I saw her. Across the street, the same little girl with the bike, standing there in the half-dark. I raised my hand and called, "Hey!" She walked her bike closer, stopped a few feet away and asked, "Did you go inside?" Her voice had an odd flatness, no curiosity, just a question. David said, "Yeah, you know about that house?" She nodded, slowly. "Everybody at school talks about it. They say someone still lives there at night. If you see a light in the windows, it means they are awake." Chris joked, "Who are they?" The girl did not answer that. She just looked at each of us and then asked, "Are you going to stay there tonight?" We laughed and said, "Yeah, we are filming a video." She stared at the house, then said, "If they keep you, what will you do?" The way she asked it, so simple, so calm. I felt the hair on my arms rise. Before any of us could reply, she turned her bike around and rode away. The sun was gone now, clouds rolling in, the sky that strange deep blue before full dark. We went back inside and did our final gear check. Cameras recording, batteries full, memory cards empty. At midnight, we lit a single candle in the living room and turned off the flashlights. Outside, crickets and a little bit of wind. Inside, nothing. David talked to his viewers again. No scripts, no tricks. If anything happens, you see it with us. Then we split up. Chris went upstairs, David stayed near the kitchen and dining area. I would move between the living room and the basement stairs. The house felt different in the dark, like it was listening. I stood in front of the couch with my camera pointed at my own face, taking a separate shot for my Bangla audience. The place you see behind me, they say the youngest Henderson kid was sitting right on this couch on the night everything happened. He probably had no idea what was coming. The second I said that, I heard a voice, right next to my left ear. No. Just that one word.
I froze. The candle flame trembled a little. I slowly turned my head. No one was there. I lifted my camera and checked the audio level. The tiny bars had jumped at the exact moment I had heard the whisper. I kept recording, telling myself I would cut that part out later. A few minutes passed. Then, from upstairs, we heard Chris. "Hey guys, check out this room! Looks like a girl's room!" His voice drifted down through the house, then cut off. A second of silence. Then a short, sharp yell, and nothing. David and I looked at each other, then sprinted toward the stairs. We charged into the upstairs hallway, our lights bouncing across the peeling wallpaper. Chris was not there. His flashlight was on the floor next to the doorway of a small bedroom. The hallway camera sat where we had left it, still recording. We searched every room. The small pink bedroom with faded wallpaper, the master bedroom, a smaller guest room. No Chris. Panic started to creep into my chest. I said, "Maybe he went back down." We ran down the stairs. As my feet hit the last step, I saw him. Standing in front of the couch in the living room, back facing us, arms hanging by his sides, perfectly still. He had no flashlight, no camera. David rushed up to him and grabbed his shoulder. "Chris, what the hell, man?" Chris turned his head slowly and looked at us. Something was wrong with his eyes. They were half unfocused, like he was looking through us. His lips moved just a little. "They are sleeping. Keep your voice down." My throat tightened. "Who?" He replied in the same dull whisper. "Them. The ones who never leave this house." I thought he was messing with us. It was exactly the kind of line you would use in a horror video, but there was no spark in his face, no playfulness. David said, "Enough. Stop this. We are leaving." Right then, the house did something I still cannot explain. The air changed. It became heavy and cold at the same time. The candle went out on its own. Our flashlights dimmed for a second and then steadied. The silence grew so deep it hurt my ears. I started to hear sounds inside that silence. Small steps somewhere above us, something shifting in the basement, a faint scratching like fingers on wood. The realization hit me in a wave. We were not alone. David squeezed my arm so hard it hurt. "Ryan, are you getting this?" I nodded, even though I was not sure I wanted to. From the front windows came a new sound, soft, slow, like someone dragging their nails down the glass. Scratch. As if something outside wanted to come in, or something inside wanted out. Chris began to walk toward the window, as if pulled by a string. We shouted at him, "Stop! Chris!" He did not respond. He moved right up to the window and stood inches away from the dirty glass. From the other side, very close, we heard a whisper. "Do you see me?" The words were breathy, childish, broken. David and I lunged forward together, grabbed Chris and pulled him back. His skin felt icy, his eyes were glassy. He shivered but did not say anything. David said, "We are done. We are so done. Grab the gear, now!" We started tearing down the cameras. I grabbed my bag. He yanked wires out of the wall. Chris just stood there in the middle of the room, mumbling under his breath, "Do not wake them." We dragged him toward the front door. Earlier, that door was half open. Now it was shut tight. David twisted the handle. Nothing. He slammed his shoulder into it. Wood thudded, but the door didn't even rattle. It was like something was holding it from the other side. I dropped my bag and started hitting the door with both fists, shouting for help. My own voice sounded strange, muffled, like the walls were swallowing the noise. The whole house shuddered once. Dust rained down from a crack in the ceiling. I coughed as it got into my throat. I turned away from the door for a second, and I saw it. Over by the base of the stairs, standing just beyond the edge of my flashlight beam, a small figure, about the height of a 6 or 7-year-old child. Its body was a pale shape in the dark, as if wearing something white, but the face was wrong. Where the eyes should be, there were 2 round, pale spots, glowing slightly. The rest of the face was swallowed by shadow. No mouth, no nose, just a sense of something looking right at me. My legs began to shake. I knew somehow that as long as I stared at it, it wouldn't move. But I also knew that the second I looked away, it would come closer. I was trapped in my own fear. Then from outside, a man shouted, "Open the door!" Someone pounded hard from the other side. David twisted the knob again, and this time it turned. The door flew open. We stumbled out onto the porch and fell into the cold night air. 2 cops were standing there, and behind them, on the sidewalk, the same little girl with the bike. One of the officers barked, "What the hell are you doing in there? This house is city property." David tried to explain between gasps, "YouTube, ghost video, we thought—" The cop cut him off. "I don't care what you thought. People reported lights and yelling from this place."
The other officer took our identification, warned us that the house was sealed by the city, and that if we were found inside again, we would be arrested. I barely heard him. I kept glancing back at the open doorway. The darkness inside seemed thicker, like water. If someone had been standing just inside, I would not have been able to see them. The little girl was still there, hands on the handlebars of her bike, her face blank, her eyes too dark for the weak streetlight. We got into the car. Chris sat in the back between the gear bags, silent, staring at nothing. As we drove away from Maple, David finally exhaled. "The footage is insane, man. This'll blow up, you know that, right?" I looked at Chris in the rearview mirror. "Do you remember anything?" He frowned, brows knit together. He spoke slowly. "I remember going into the little bedroom, the one with the faded pink walls. I thought it was the daughter's room. I saw broken toys on the floor. And there was a voice, a little kid voice right behind me. It said, 'Come see my toys.' Then he trailed off." "Then what?" I asked. He shook his head. "Then nothing. It is just blank after that." We rode the rest of the way home in silence. It got worse when we checked the footage. The living room shots looked fine. Basement camera was creepy but explainable. But the upstairs hallway camera, the one that had a clear angle of the bedroom where Chris disappeared, that was different. In the video, we see Chris enter the girl's room. He points the flashlight at the walls, at the broken bed. He says to the camera,
Guys, this room is kind of cute. I guess this was the daughter's room. Look at these toys. Then his face changes slightly. His eyes shift to somewhere behind the camera. A smile creeps across his lips, not his normal smile. Too wide, too slow. He says, "Do you want to play?" The camera pans a little to the right, and for 1 second, at the very edge of the frame, you can see a small white figure. Just the outline of a child in a white dress, face toward the wall, head slightly tilted. Then the image glitches. The timestamp jumps forward. Suddenly we are in the living room. Chris standing in front of the couch. No walking, no transition. I kept playing that single second over and over. Pause, zoom, play. The more I tried to focus, the more the image blurred. But one detail stayed clear. The child figure did not cast any shadow. Not on the wall, not on the floor. It was like it did not belong to the light at all. David was freaking out, in a good way, pacing around the room saying, "This is perfect. We'll cut it right here. Slow zoom on that room. Title card, done." But I was stuck watching my own chest camera footage. In the living room, when I said, maybe the kid didn't know what was coming that night, right after that, clear as day, the recording picked up a small voice whispering, "No." Then a faint sound like a child whimpering, almost under the noise floor, but still there. The worst clip came from the end, when we were trying to escape. My camera is shaking as I run to the door. David is pounding on it. Chris is standing a few feet behind me. In the corner of the frame, near the bottom edge, as the camera tilts slightly down, something rises up behind me. A small head, just barely coming into the frame as if someone shorter than me is standing right behind my back, peeking over my shoulder. White skin, eyes like two hollow circles, no visible mouth, no hair. Frozen in a horrible, almost smile. It's so close that if it had reached out one hand, it would have touched the back of my neck, and I had no idea it was there. You think that's the end? But it was only the beginning. After that night, everything started to feel wrong. David was still determined to upload at least part of the footage. I argued with him. Chris didn't even join the discussion. He stopped replying to our group chat. He said the whole thing made him feel sick. One night I was at home alone, reviewing the files again on my laptop, trying to convince myself there was a logical explanation. Rain outside, lights off, just the glow from the screen. I was pausing on that horrible frame of the small head behind me, thinking maybe it was a reflection, and the power went out. Completely. The laptop stayed on battery. The house went silent except for the rain. The image of that pale face was still on my screen, staring at me. I reached up to close the laptop, and I heard it, just behind my right ear, exactly the way David had described in the bedroom. "Do you see me now?" I jerked around so fast that the chair almost fell over. There was nothing in the room, but the window to my right was a black mirror, and in that reflection, for a fraction of a second, I saw something white standing behind my chair. I shut the laptop and grabbed my phone. My fingers were shaking so much I almost dropped it. I turned on the flashlight and swept the room. Empty. The reflection was gone from the window, only my own terrified face staring back at me. The next morning, David called. His voice sounded thin and shaky. "Dude, The fire alarm in my building went off last night, middle of the night. Whole place smelled like gas, but the fire department said there was no leak, nothing. My mind went straight back to the article about the Henderson family. Gas leak, explosion. A few days later, Chris quit everything. He stopped filming, deleted his social media. When I finally convinced him to meet up for coffee, he looked like he hadn't slept in days. He told me, "Every night when I try to sleep, I feel someone sit on the edge of my bed. The mattress dips, and a little kid voice whispers in my ear, 'Come, play.'" He said it was such flat emptiness that I believed him completely. In the end, David did upload a small part of the footage. Not the upstairs hallway clip, not the frame with the head behind me, just the bits where we were clearly scared, running, shouting. The video did well. Lots of comments, lots of new subscribers. What he never told anyone was what started happening in the comments section. People wrote things like, "After I watched this, I heard footsteps outside my bedroom even though I live alone." Someone else said, "I paused the video in the living room scene and I swear I saw a small white shape near the stairs." Another viewer claimed, "The night after watching, their gas stove turned on by itself." Maybe they were lying. Maybe it was suggestion. Maybe people see what they want to see. Or maybe the house was tired of just three of us. Here's why I'm telling you all this. Ever since that night, every time we tell this story in full, not the cut version on the channel, but the full story exactly like I just told you, something starts happening around the listener. It's as if the story itself carries a piece of that house with it. So now that you've heard everything, I want you to do something. Don't pause. Don't look away yet. Just feel. Notice the air around you. Is the room slightly colder than it should be? Is the sound in your house a little too quiet? Are you suddenly aware of your own breathing? When this story ends, if you're watching on your phone or your laptop, your screen will go dark for a moment. You might see your own reflection. If you do, look carefully behind you in that reflection. Do you see a small shape, about the height of a child, standing just at the edge of the darkness behind you? Two hollow eyes, no smile, no shadow. If you feel a weight behind you, if your hair on your neck rises, if the silence suddenly feels full, then maybe, just maybe, the Henderson house has found a way into your room. And remember what that little girl in Maple asked us. If they keep you, what will